computer. There we go. We're recording. Let's start talking about chapter 7. I'm a little messed up because it's week 9, chapter 7. Normally we do chapter 7 in week 7, chapter 8 in week 8. We're a little bit off this time. No worries. So chapter 7, here's the weird part with this course. We're kind of reaching a turning point with this course. So far, the first 6 chapters have really focused on just communications in general. We've talked first about what communication is, how it operates. We've talked about why we communicate, motivations behind it. And then we talked about the more specific aspects of communication, the verbal, the listening, the nonverbal. And now here with chapter 7, we're moving into just a new phase in the text where we're talking about specific types of relationships. Okay, so what you're going to see is this week we're talking about changing relationships and how we maintain them, relational maintenance. Next week with chapter 8, we'll be looking at conflict. They called relational difficulties, but let's be honest, it's conflict. And then with chapters 9, 10, and 11, we're looking at specific types of relationships. So chapter 9 is going to be romantic relationships. Chapter 10 is going to be family relationships. Chapter 11 is going to be workplace relationships. And then within that, those last few weeks, we're really going to be emphasizing the final as well. So it's really this turning point where we're looking at specific pieces of it. So tonight we're going to start with, let's see, share screen, with maintaining changing relationships. So just take a few minutes and talk to me a little bit about relationships in the sense of what makes them difficult. What would you say makes relationships difficult?
Lack of communication makes it difficult.
That's the big one, right?
Did you say get out of your head, Marcia?
I said it and thought I unmuted the mic and I didn't. And then when I heard you say it, I'm like, really, Arlick? Okay.
Other than that, manipulation makes relationship hard if it's a romantic manipulation. I mean, if it's a romantic relationship, because
but I feel like that goes hand in hand with communication, because if it is a manipulative situation, then with the lack of communication or the communication that is being manipulated and you're not paying attention, blinded by lust and or love, of course, the communication aspect can be blinded with communication, like with manipulation, if that makes sense.
Which is insane, because over the weekend, this is somebody that I haven't seen in a while. So my children's father, his sister's daughter, which is about the same age as my oldest.
So like your niece.
She's kind of like my niece, and I haven't seen her in a while. Passed away over the weekend. And I'm gonna let you guys guess how it happened. With us talking about relationship, with us talking about relationship.
Domestic.
She has 3 children. And one of her children's father over the weekend stabbed her. And the thing about it is he hit major arteries, and as he was doing it said to her, I'm like, he was doing it to make sure that she doesn't survive. And he hit major arteries where she was fighting. She was fighting when she was in the hospital, and she didn't make it. She passed away. And this idiot is still on the loose. And this is crazy. And it was all because this man, she has 3 children. She has to have that relationship with her other children's father. And this man was so jealous over that, if she was to talk to them, it was, are you talking to them? Like, those are my children's father. They are part of their life. And that communication, they could not communicate. Like this, it was crazy. It was insane. I was like, wow.
Sure. So first of all, Elise, I am so sorry. So sorry. That is so tragic. And I'm speaking from the experience of having a friend who was killed by her husband 5 years ago at Christmas time. So I feel like I I get it. I get it. I really can empathize with you on that. What we're getting at, though, tragedy aside, horrible, horrible situations, murder aside, what we're really getting at, though, is that's conflicts and the manipulation and these horrible relationships and instances where people are saying, why are you talking to that person? Or why are you hanging out with that person? Or I'm going to control what you do. Definitely, without a doubt, Marzina, you were saying the same thing, but definitely without a doubt, that is communication breakdown. Absolutely. It has more to do with what we'll talk about next week when we talk about conflict. It's also going to segue into what we talk about in week 11 when we look at romantic relationships too. But yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing.
Emotion.
Yeah.
And like
Which
expressing
does go ahead.
Expressing your emotions or lack thereof your emotions and stuff like that. Because I mean, I can just be like, okay, and because when people make excuses, it drives me nuts. Like, especially what's going on with my life. And I was just like, I don't have the time nor the patience. There's nothing you can say to me that is going to excuse why somebody can't do something, like, yes, something might set you back. Like in our Lisa's instance, she could have chose not to come to class today and everybody wouldn't have even, okay, like that's totally understandable, but she's not using that as an excuse to not do what she wants and what she's supposed to do and all this other stuff. But it's like, it's ridiculous.
And some of that goes back to what we talked about with chapters 2 and 3 early in the semester when we were talking about like what is important to you, what are your values, or at least you're here, you're talking about this because a couple of reasons. It might be important to you to stay on with your education. It might be important to you to distract yourself. Sometimes people come to class because they need a distraction from.
I needed to stay focused. I needed to not lose focus on what my goal was, what my plan is. And, you go through things in life and it's like Courtney said, it's either you let it define you or you run with it. And for me, it's like, I've been through so much at this point in my life that nothing can define.
Sure.
It can't.
And you know what? It's funny. I know a lot of times that our discussions sound like a therapy session, or it sounds like something we should be talking about in a psychology class. But the reality is these events and these experiences and these feelings and these emotions impact how we communicate with other people so deeply. You have this tragic incident that you described to us over the weekend, and the reality is there's meaning and emotion and weights and feelings that these people who are involved in the situation had pre-existing, and now you put them together and there's lack of communication or struggle to communicate. And now because that communication is so fraught, here's something horrible that happens. And it envelops so much of our lives.
Whether people want to believe it or not, the fact that so much has happened up until I started school. And it's crazy to me that I'm going into the field of human services and all these things are happening. And for me, it's like, this is the field that you're going into. And whatever you decide to do, like you are getting a live experience, like of what somebody else may go through that may come to you. Like all of these stuff to me is just experiences, and you're gonna have to deal with it because when you work as a human services, you can't, if you're helping a client, you can't let what you're going through affect how you help that client.
Sure.
So for me, it's just like, it's, you go through it, you deal with it.
But those experiences are going to help you better communicate with
in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're a little off track here. I mean, it's still relevant. We're still relevant certainly to communications, but what other reasons, why else are relationships just really hard? Why else? We've talked a lot about conflict, but what else?
You have to compromise. You have to find that middle ground.
Yeah. Yeah,
And-
absolutely. I hate compromising.
Yeah,
The
I'm
difference
not a
is
real big
my
fan
way.
of it either.
the difference is like the difference, the different value between two people that might make relationship really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. You might value something and the
That
other
they
person
don't
does not.
value, yeah.
Hmm.
Which ties in with emotions, I think. Like Courtney said.
Well, sure, it's important to you. Your values define you. They are what is important to you and what make you who you are. Good. What else?
Religion can be a big factor too.
It's a big commitment.
What do you mean, Amber?
Like, you can't just be like half in, you have to be all in. And like,
Yeah,
that can be hard for some people.
sure. I'm going to piggyback on what you just said. There's also this, and I'm not tying this to romantic relationships as much as it's relevant, but there's such a need to balance the relationship too. When you talk about commitment, there's such a need, there's such a value in everyone giving an equal share to the relationship, whether that's equal attention or equal responsibility or equal maintenance, as we're talking about tonight. And that doesn't always work. It doesn't always happen that you've got two equal committed people in a relationship.
Would
Again, my
trauma,
first thought is, romantic relationship, but it could be any sort of relationship.
would trauma be a thing on relationship?
I would say yes. And I'm looking at the syllabus here to see like it's just the different chapters. Trauma is going to be part of a relationship in the sense that, first of all, it's, and I hesitate to use the word define, but it affects you, it has an impact on you. So you're going to react and behave in certain ways because of trauma or past traumas. If it's trauma that comes from a person that you're in a relationship with, that's a whole nother can of worms. And then also it might be something that produces a lot of noise. Again, going back to the very beginning of class, we're talking about noise, not necessarily being sounds and audible, but being like that overwhelming feeling or that pent up emotion or what's the word? The PTSD from that trauma. So that can also be a factor. Absolutely. I would say definitely the trauma. Any other ways that you find relationships difficult? You've given me some really good ones.
There could be like sorry, hold on a second.
Yeah.
I just got a brain fart. I think you guys get what I'm trying to say.
Like cultural differences.
Thank you. Cultural differences, where that also could come hand in hand with communication. But just the cultural differences because, for example, me being West Indian, I was a Trini, and then I realized that I get annoyed, and God forgive me, and Goodwin, no disrespect, but I get annoyed dating American Black men because they, to me, are very annoying. And it's like, I'm not going to
they
say
all
all
are.
of them.
That's it
all
in
are.
general.
Don't feel bad, Marcina. Don't feel bad because I feel the same way. I feel
Across
that
the
they
board.
are disrespectful.
They're very disrespectful. And
Y'all
like,
need to meet my husband. If he wasn't already married, I would totally pimp him out.
I am recording this.
and this is crazy. Courtney, I love you. But I absolutely totally I get annoyed, and primarily because I just feel like the majority of them are so lazy. My first time meeting allowing a Black American to date me was the first time I met an American who didn't know how to cook. Caribbean culture, you learn to cook from the time you're in the womb. You don't have a choice. So like my daughter, you know, she learned to cook very early on. My son is now learning, like I started late with him. I should have started like at 4 or 5, but with my daughter, she knew how to cook, make rice, wash chicken, you know, do everything from the time she was like 6, 7. Like she knows these things, like she knows what to do. A Black American man, when, you know, it blew my mind when he told me he didn't know how to wash a chicken, he didn't know how to grocery shop, act like properly. I was confused. I was really confused. So yeah, the cultural lack of communication,
Sure.
or, you know, ethnic differences it's just different. It's just really, really different.
And
I so
just,
agree with you, Marzina.
yeah,
So
right.
agree.
And just
Oh my
looking
God.
ahead with the final, I think communication, culture and communication go hand in hand. And so there's a lot to be said for the fact that American culture is very slanted, and responsibilities are not necessarily shared equally. And that's where you see that across, you know, with a lot of men.
You can't go to the park now. It's raining, Tatum, and it's
Yeah, just tell him no to the park.
oh, I'm muted. Sorry.
It's okay, no
But that
worries.
story, that story totally reminded me of, all right, again, no judgment. I watched the 90-day fiance or whatnot, and there's this
Oh, those
girl
are
on there.
great.
Her name is Tiffany. She's married to the South African man. And there's Nolan. She goes, me, Nolan. And she's wanting more from her husband. She wants him to be more responsible and all this other stuff. And he's just not by any means. And she gets super, super frustrated. And I don't blame her.
No, not at all. You know, it's funny, you laugh about you laugh about 90-day fiance and stuff like that, but honestly, it's such a great, you know, example. It's such a great I don't know what's the word, I'm not even thinking about it, microcosm of culture and communication, and where it just completely breaks down.
To see when they get together, being from different
Mhm.
culture and thinking that everything is gonna work, and as they get into it,
yeah.
to see like all the problems that might occur and that
Yeah.
they might have to deal with, you know, like, okay, how are we gonna make this work? We knew we were from different places. Yeah, sometimes watching it is just like, whoo, I don't think I would ever do that.
Mhm. Same thing with like The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, shows like that, you know, just, yes, they're a guilty pleasure. And I think most people watch them because they're absolutely ridiculous. But when you think about it from a communications point of view, there's a lot to unpack. There really is. All right. Hi, Amanda. All right, let's go ahead and jump in and talk about relational maintenance. All right. So as I said before, second half of this course focuses on specific types of relationship. These are the last 5 chapters that we're going to focus on. Today, it's how we manage our relationships. Next week, it's the conflict in our relationships. In 2 weeks, romantic relationships. In 3 weeks, familial relationships. And then in 4 weeks, we'll be doing professional relationships. And that'll take us through August 5th, I think. And then the last 2 weeks after that, we're really focusing on the final. But yeah, this is really like the meat of this course. When we talk about interpersonal communications, we chapters 1 through 6 really focused on understanding communications, a good overview of communications. And now chapters 7 through 11, they're really going to focus on, again, those relationships, that interpersonal part. All right. So what we're looking at this week is relational maintenance. And this is essentially just the stuff that you do all the time to keep your relationships functioning, to keep them working. Some of us are great at relational maintenance. Some of us are horrible at relational maintenance. And as we've said a million times already this semester, it's contextual. Sometimes you're going to be great at maintaining that relationship and you're going to feel good about it. And sometimes you're not. Sometimes you want to maintain that relationship. Sometimes you don't. The picture that I've given you here, I'm sure you've seen something like this before, especially that first line of it. Relationships take work. We know this. I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer. we know that relationships take work. We know that relationships are hard. We've already listed a couple ways that relationships are hard. But really now we're focusing on why they're hard and what we do to mitigate that difficulty. All right. But it's just the sheer fact that we are constantly working on these relationships. We're constantly working on how to, you know, improve them or keep them running. And let's be honest, you are not horrible people. Just quick disclaimer, you're not horrible people if there are relationships that you have dropped or people that you've dropped or relationships that are not working right now. Again, they take time, they take energy, they take work. And I think Amber said it really best when she said that there needs to be a commitment and it needs to be a mutual commitment. You know, think about a friendship where you started out and the two of you were close and it worked well and you were both equally contributing, and then someone just kind of disappeared or faded away, but you're still actively trying to maintain that relationship. Again, that's not something on you. That's something where the maintenance just kind of fell off. Go ahead,
Because
Elise.
people are so set in their ways that, you know, to a point where, okay, I'm trying to maneuver this to you know, communicate, but sometimes people are set in their ways that is just like, you know what, this is not worth it, I'm done. Even with a friendship, because people are so set in their own ways that no matter what you try to, you know, bring across or to compromise, because people are so set, like, and it's just like, okay, why am I trying?
But it's more than that. I would argue it's more than that. Again, contextual. All right. It could be the sheer fact that someone's busy and the other person's not. It could be the fact that someone feels insulted and the other person doesn't. It could be, you know, some sort of transgression, someone committed against someone else. There's lots of different things. Marzina, go ahead. Did you raise your hand? I thought you did. There you go.
Yep, I did. I'm sorry. I was gonna say that it also is, you know, the love language, you know, again, another form of communication. Everyone has their own love language. I'm trying to think of the book, the five language, blah blah blah. I'm so sorry. Tonight I'm not good. I took
It's over there
payments, guys.
somewhere.
I took a payment, so my
Yep, no
brain
worries.
is like kind of squishy. But the Five Love Languages by I think it's Gary Chapman.
Yep, we'll be talking about it in 2 weeks.
Oh, see, I've read the book several times, but I learned about the book after my divorce. So, and I always encourage everyone when it comes to, like, you know, relationship things, like, really that's the go-to book in the beginning of a court relationship, I call it, because that's when it teaches you, you know, the differences in each other or whatever. I am trying to talk and it's like everything I want to say, it's the meds. I'm sorry. Just okay, whatever. I'm just gonna be quiet the rest of the class.
No worries.
I sound like I feel like I am jambling and scrimbling my words.
You're not as
We
bad.
understand you though. We understand you. You're not. We get what you're saying.
It's not as bad as
at least I do.
So yeah, actually, thank you for bringing that up. In 2 weeks, I honestly need to find the book, whether it's behind me or upstairs or sitting on my desk at my office. We will be talking about that in 2 weeks because it is something that is very helpful. I'm saving it for romantic relationships because he wrote it with the intention that it's going to save a romantic relationship. But yeah, you're exactly right. It is essentially maintenance. How do you maintain that romantic relationship? Cool. All right. Let's see. So I can't see, my head's in the way. Our relationships are influenced by many factors. We've listed some of them already. Let's go over a few other factors. And these are some of the ways that we maintain a relationship. All right, I'm taking this directly from the text. This is some of the ways: positivity, understanding, self-disclosure, relationship talks, assurances, tasking, and networks. I'm going to go over them a little bit for you, not in great detail, because I think you probably have an understanding with them. I would argue that in many of these, you're good. And in many of these, you're not so good. And so sometimes with a relationship, it's a matter of really working on how well do you do some of these specific behaviors when it comes to maintaining your relationships. Immediately, as we're thinking about the 5 different love languages, I know for me that one of my love languages, I know I'm getting ahead of myself a couple weeks, but one of the love languages that they talk about is tasking. And so immediately for me, that's one that's important to me. And I see it right in that list. So I know that's something, you know, when it comes to relational maintenance, that's something that's going to be critical. So let's go through them. Positivity essentially is just being positive and upbeat and having a good attitude. And it seems silly when you think about that, but the reality is you don't want to be with a Debbie Downer all the time. You know, a lot of people have stress and have challenges and have things that they're dealing with. And when you're constantly dealing with someone who's always an Eeyore and they're negative and they're grumpy, it can be draining on a relationship, and it can be draining on the individual. So it's a way to stay to maintain a relationship, is to be positive and uplifting. Another one is understanding, being understanding of each other. So not unlike positivity, but being able to talk and to sympathize and provide empathy and sympathy is a way to maintain that relationship. Along the same lines as self-disclosure. So sharing yourself, sharing what moves you, what upsets you, what frustrates you, what you dream about, those sort of conversations. And if you think about, you know, those conversations that you have with someone, whether it's the start of a relationship or especially the start of a romantic relationship, you know, where you sit and you talk for hours and hours and hours and you're explaining and you're sharing different aspects of yourself and you're getting kind of excited about the relationship. Have you had that feeling? Probably not recently because, you know, pandemic, but that sort of self-disclosure is something that's going to really help move a relationship along versus, you know, a relationship where people don't know a lot about each other. And I'm brought back to that video activity a few weeks ago with the birthday party confusion. You've got 2 people who clearly don't know a lot about each other, certainly not enough to understand each other. And here's this really unfortunate misunderstanding over a birthday card. All right, relationship talks. This is the fun one, right? This is when you actually sit down and talk to someone about your relationship. You know, that concentrated discussion when you say, I like it when you do this. I don't like it when you do this. And I want our relationship to go from what level to the next level, you know? So assurances is when you are saying nice things about each other or when you are trying to boost each other's egos or emotions, or help people feel reassured, if you will. So it's the things that you say. Tasking is doing things for each other or doing activities together. And then finally, networks, I think might be the most obvious, having a shared community with each other. So, you know, you have this group of friends that are kind of surround that whole relationship and hold it together. I was in a really interesting situation a few weeks ago where a friend was going through a horrible breakup. And as she was going through this breakup, something that she told us about was the fact that her partner had not even shared that they had been dating with her friend circle. So you've got 2 people who are, you know, in a relationship for years, all right? And what happens is one person has fully committed and included this person in her friend network, and the other person has not. And so that network just did not exist, which is a huge impact there. So there's my personal story with it. What are some of your thoughts as we talk about these 7 different behaviors? What do you see there?
Um, honestly, I think of it all like a business. Like it reminds me of a business, like the networking, the tasking, what is it? Assurances, relationship talk, self-disclosure, understanding, positivity. That sounds like a workplace environment almost to me, like or like a business of some sort, like a business partner almost.
Relationships take work.
Could be the drugs.
Anyone want to argue her on that? Disagree, agree? Christina, is that you?
Yes, it is.
There she is. Hey.
Hi.
Were you going to argue, Marzina? No? Okay. You know what? Yeah, you know what? I do like that metaphor. I do like that metaphor that relationships or these kind of maintaining behaviors are work. It does sound like work because let's be honest, you have in an organization, in a job, you've got people who are in charge, you've got people who are doing the tasks, you've got people who are being positive and uplifting, you've got people who are, you know, having those hard conversations. I'm thinking of like HR people in that case. And you need all of those pieces to keep the business or the organization running and flowing smoothly. When you don't have those pieces, it breaks down. Same thing in a relationship. Here we've got these 7 different behaviors. And the reality is you need to have these. You need to be able to include them at least to some degree, or not necessarily will the relationship break down, but it's going to be challenging. You know, there's going to be instances where it's really difficult to interact with each other. Marzina, go ahead.
So and then I'm sorry, while you were talking, made me think of other things like the relationships nowadays. I call it the millennial relationships or the COVID relationships, whatever. I feel like they don't have all of these things. Like relationships, I feel like have changed over time. Like when it was the thing where the guy would court the female, instead it's Netflix and sex. Like it's just like they just kind of jumped the gun versus getting to actually get to the point of positivity and actually understanding them on every level, both emotionally, mentally, spiritually, things like that. Then the self-disclosure, when you're actually being vulnerable and expressing certain things about yourselves that maybe no one else knows, so that you can put the ugly on the table so that they can understand you. Then the assurances, tasking, networking, they don't do any of that anymore. Like none of that, most of, if not all of that, is non-existent in 2021. It's more so the, you know, Black people meet, you know, Bumblebee, meet online, Netflix chill. They jump everything and they just kind of just, they're trying to keep up with the Kardashians more like type of thing, and trying to follow the trend of the hip hop world, or, you know, trying to follow the Disney love that it can exist if you're actually putting in the work, but no one actually does the work. So, yeah.
I think what you're getting at there is short-term versus long-term. You know, will those Netflix and chill relationships be, you know, 50 years from now, will they be celebrating milestone anniversaries?
Milestone and anniversaries. See, for me, so when we talk, we've talked about relationship amongst like relationship, but I'm having a hard time. And as you guys know, I have older children. And the relationship between me and them, I'm having a hard time because their views and my views, because I was raised the old time West Indian back in the days, you know, and I'm still trying to deal with the millennial, still trying to give them that, you know, all right, I'm gonna try it your way, but still know that this is what I expect. And me and my children are bumping heads because we don't see eye to eye on their view. Like to me, it's like, you know, you do what I say. Like that's the end of it. That's how I used to be. But I try to give my kids that, okay, we'll talk about it. But for me now, I feel because I'm giving them that choice to, okay, let's talk about it, they're becoming disrespectful with that. And I'm like, all right, should I revert back to, all right, I'm my way and that's it? When it comes to like that type of relationship.
Are we
So-
talking about relationship like mother-daughter, or are we talking about like relationship
Family
as
wise,
in-
family as like, oh, sorry guys.
Okay. Because I
Yep.
was like,
Excuse
You're
me,
not
I'm so
wrong,
sorry.
though. No, you're not wrong, though, because when we talk about maintaining relationships, these things go for all relationships. It doesn't have to be romantic, you know, I'm thinking about someone in particular in the years past. There's been a couple friends that I've basically dropped over the years. One of them in particular I was really close with for a couple of years. And I finally realized I can't be friends with this person anymore. And the reason behind it was, when you talk about yourself only. and I'd get on the phone with her and I talk to her, and because she lives in Florida now, it would be a 2-hour conversation about her and nothing else. And I remember one time talking to her, and I had just had knee surgery, and I'm sitting on the couch. I'm in incredible pain. I'm really scared about it, right? And she spent 2 hours talking to me about her dog. And don't get me wrong, I like animals, but you know, at some point you have to say, hey, what's new with you, right? When you don't have that self-disclosure, when you don't have that understanding, and you don't have that ability to, you know, make it go both ways in that relationship, forget it. I decided to drop the relationship in that case. So you're absolutely right. I don't remember if it was Marzina or Elise there who said that it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It doesn't.
right.
I lost my train of thought on the second point I was going to make. So someone jump in and save me.
Yeah, I had the same type of experience with a friend of mine. Like I felt like every time, like if I would call her, let's say if I was in distress or something like that, I wanted to talk to her about something. The minute, like I at least got enough to say what the distress was, but the minute the distress would come out, she'd compare her distress to mine. It'd be almost like a competition. The whole conversation would be a competition of who is in more distress, or who's been traumatized more, who's been this more. And I'm like, I just wanted to talk to you like about me today. Like I called you because I wanted to have a conversation. And yes, I want feedback, but this shouldn't be a competition. Like I say, you know, I was like, oh, you know, today my car broke down. Oh, girl, you know, my car broke down like 3 years ago, and I went through. I'm like,
I hate those people.
yeah, that's great. That's great.
I have
Okay,
no
so
patience
then
with
I, you know, I want to be a good listener, right? I practice that, so I would listen, and I'm like, oh, you know, and then you know, my job this and da da da. And she's like, oh, girl, you know what's happening in my job? And then it's like, and she'll cut me off. And I'm like, okay, so you know what? I no longer want to tell you what's going on.
Mhm. What you're talking about there, going back to listening, chapter 5, conversational narcissist. It's all about them. Despise those kind of people. The other
I'm
thing
sorry, guys. This was an emergency. I had to pick this up.
No
But
worries.
yeah, to go back, Marcina, I didn't hear you. What did you say? Am I talking? I'm just talking on like family-wise type. I didn't get to hear what you guys were saying. Family, you know.
I remembered
Family
what I was saying, though. I did, because it's relevant. This is my beef with this particular textbook that we use. So we've got these 11 chapters and blah, 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 all these different relationships, but at no point does it cover like child relationships or relationships with children, whether it's a child that you know, whether it's a son or a daughter, whether it's a niece or nephew. And so I really struggle with a lot of these topics, because it's hard. How do you then connect conflicts to the relationship that you have with someone who's not fully developed, you know? Okay, so you have a 17-year-old, I have a 3-year-old. Okay, so how do I have a relationship and a conversation with her about our networks when you're 3 and you're a kid, you're functioning on a completely different level. So unfortunately, when we talk about communications in this class in particular, we have to keep it with adults, because I don't see that a lot of the principles that we're talking about always apply to children or apply effectively. Another thing that bugs me is animals. Okay, so when we talk about communications, I imagine at some point you've had a relationship with an animal, whether it was a pet or someone else's pet, but animals communicate with us and we communicate back with them, right? But what does that look like? And same thing, do you maintain your relationship with your dog the same way that you maintain your relationship with another human or not? It's a weird fuzzy area. And I think sometimes that's something we have to consider with this. Marzina, you've been really patient. Go ahead.
Wait, I think I forgot. Wait a minute.
Sorry, I talked too much.
Wait. Oh, yes.
Families.
Christina. I think it was Christina that was talking about her friendship, right? And how she does, like, you would go to a friend. I think that's what you were saying, right, Christina? And then she would like kind of compare. Okay, just making sure I was right. So like with one of my very close friends, she just contacted me, letting me know that I guess a longtime friend and her are no longer friends. The friend just stopped talking to her. So she asked me, she thought they were close and she just stopped talking. And I said, well, why do you think she did? She said, I don't understand. I always spoke to her, about everything. And then she told me that she couldn't deal with my negativity. It was consistent negativity every time we spoke. And I said to her, you want to know something? I respect her for letting you know when she could have just went behind your back, right?
Mhm.
So I did let her know, and I disclosed to her. I said, most of the time when you do talk about things, there's nothing ever edifying to the mind or the spirit. It's always something of a complaint or ongoing issue between you and so. So I said, I can definitely understand where she's coming from. I said, some people cannot handle a dump. Like, you can't dump on everybody.
Oh,
And
yeah.
sometimes some friends need to set healthy boundaries, because even though today you might be able to dump on me, tomorrow you might not be able to dump on me.
Yep.
Because I'm going through my own, what at this moment,
Absolutely.
and I cannot deal and or handle. So people don't understand that you can't dump all the time. So she took it personally. And that's where I feel like in her mind, like I feel like the understanding, she lacks understanding.
Two
As a
things
friend.
going on there. First of all, you had that relationship talk. So
Right.
that person, I hope that she values the fact that you had that relationship talk with her. And I hope that
Mhm.
she respects you for it and that your relationship is stronger for it. But yeah, there
I
is
hope
some
so.
understanding there. I really like what you said there about the dump, the emotional dump, the emotional just blah. You're absolutely right. And we talked about this again a few weeks ago, where I can listen to you and I can be there for you and support you, but then I'm going to reach a point where there's just too much noise and frustration going on in my own life, and I can't be there the next day. So absolutely, that's another maintenance behavior. If you look at the bottom of the screen there, it says, what specific maintaining behaviors can you think of? That's one of them. Absolutely. The fact where you have to disengage before you can re-engage and fully support that person. Go ahead, Arlise.
And that's what I was about to say. A true friend should be able to understand that, like Marzina say, it's not every day, I'm gonna try to help you, but it's not every day that I can sit here and listen to what you have to say when I do have problems of my own to deal with. And for, like, take me, for example, I won't dump my problems on my friends. That's the crazy thing. I will listen to them. I will try to help them. But as far as like my own personal stuff, I will try to hold it and trying to figure it out on my own, because I have that mentality. People don't want to hear it. So what am I gonna share my, what I'm going through with you when you may not be able to give me that positive feedback, or you may not be listening?
Yeah. Yep. Another key thing, going back to Amber said it before, you need that commitment, you need that mutual buy-in. So in the interest of time here, let's look at the question at the bottom there. What specific maintaining behaviors can you think of? I've given you, the 7 general category there, but what are specific things besides that you do, to maintain your relationships? The dump, or the ability to sit and listen to someone for a long time, or the need to disengage so that you can better re-engage. Those are 2 specific things that you can do, but what are other things that you might do?
Can you ask that question one more time? I'm so sorry. The baby came in and started screaming about
No
ice cream.
worries. At the bottom of the screen, it says, what specific maintaining behaviors can you think of? So specifically, what are things, and you can think about your own personal relationships, but what are things that you do because it's good for your relationship?
Not making assumption. I think that's one of the big things when it comes, because
Okay.
assumption, when you assume, as the phrase would say, when you assume, you make an ass out of
Is that a
yourself.
you and me? You got
So,
it.
yeah, I think that's one of the things, because assumption is a lot.
What else?
For me, it's been trying to understand, but that's backfired for me.
It doesn't always work. And that's what makes it
Trying to understand where they're coming from, trying to understand,
Yeah.
their point of view on things, but that's always backfired because they say I asked too many damn questions.
Well, to your point, Christina, sometimes you just can't understand. There are certain things that you're not going to be able to understand, no matter how many different ways people tell you. You have no way to relate to it. What else?
I think an example for tasking could be like doing the dishes or like picking your kid up from school,
Yeah.
just pulling your weight in whatever
Absolutely.
relationship is.
Absolutely. Along those same lines, putting up with the other person's family or the other person's friends. I see all you guys going like this, right? There is someone, there is someone that you put up with because you have to. Jasmine, what did you want to say?
For me right now, my big one is communication and also not assuming things,
Yeah.
making assumptions. Yeah.
And being willing to communicate. Marzina, go ahead.
Wait,
Raise your
okay.
hand.
Okay, I did. Okay, so for positivity, again, I agree with everyone when they talk about the behaviors, which is be proactive instead of reactive, type of thing. Under the understanding, not thinking the worst in the situation. For self-disclosure, just being completely honest and disclosing that personal, intimate detail about yourself, and how you feel, putting it all out on the table, and not hiding anything, which again comes hand in hand with the communication. Relationship talk, no matter what the situation is, I feel like the relationship talk is something that could be between a family member, as we said earlier. And like you said, having to deal with someone in a family that you don't like. So that relationship talk can kind of go there. I am so sorry. The kids are in the back and they just messed up my concentration.
Not that noisy.
Let me see, the assurances. Just giving affirmations to each other, whether it's the friends, the family, and or the relationship that you're in. The tasking, like Amber said, is taking up chores, helping, and where one lacks, the other one picks up. And networking, making sure that everyone's kind of picking up. Again, the tasking, that kind of, I feel like the networks and the tasking kind of can run hand in hand. So yeah, that's my behavioral list. Yes.
I would argue one more, and there's tons. I mean, we can go on for hours about different things that you do to maintain different relationships. One more that came to mind for me is sometimes just letting things slide, just, and on one level, it's you not having the energy to deal with it. But on the other level, it's just like, you know what? It's not worth it. That's just how this person is, and I'm going to let it slide. My sister, I love her to death, and she is one of the strongest, most stubborn, most confident people I know. But when she gets stressed or she feels overtired or she gets like something's bugging her, she gets mean and she'll just start firing shots across the bow. And I'm sure I do that to some extent too. But with her, she'll get mean and she'll start being angry and rude. And it's one of those things that's just like, you know what? I could get into this fight with you, but there's something else bothering you. And I understand that about you. So I'm just going to let it slide. All right. Elise?
I do that. And my cousin tends to tell me, like, I do that too much. And I tell her, I don't have the energy. Rather than putting that energy into...
Where's the balance?
Like constantly, Like, I don't have the energy. And she's like, but no, people will tend to walk all over you when you let it slide. I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, I thought about that, and she's making me second guess the fact that I let it slide sometimes. Like, it's whatever. Because because I let it slide, they would think that it's okay to, keep pushing, keep, tugging, I guess. So that one, I don't know. I'm a little skeptic about that, letting it slide. I don't know.
That's fair. She's not wrong. Again, context. Which relationships are you talking about? If it was someone that I'm working with that I don't really need to hold on to that relationship, I might not be as forgiving. This is my sister. I've known her since I was 3, so, and I expect to know her for a lot longer. So yeah, that's one that I'm going to. But I think you've hit on something really important. There is balance. And that's where it gets really hard, is because we as individuals, we need to know who we are, what we need, what drives us, what makes us absolutely batshit crazy, and find that balance. And I think, along with the meaning of life, where you find that balance, who knows? Let me know if you find it.
I think that the personality of a person, like that personality she's describing that she has, I think can be interpreted as someone who doesn't care. So people, I guess, go like, I'm in a relationship with someone who's very similar. It's we can go have a big blow up, and it's like within an hour she's like, okay, I'm over it. I'm like, what? Like, we didn't even talk about it, we didn't discuss it. She was like, it doesn't matter, like, I just don't have the room to care. I'm like, but what does that mean? We just had an entire, like, it's and then I'm sure that if my sister was sitting in front of the computer, which is why I laugh, she would say exactly what you said about your sister. When I am frustrated and I can't not have, God forbid you say anything to me, I'm like, what? And I'm like spitting them out. But I think it's a, when we're talking before about having a not room for it anymore. So it's like, it's like, I don't know if your sister feels like that, but I get like that when I have no more room for anything else. So if anybody even says like, hey, what do you want for dinner? I don't have room to think about.
Yep. You're too, I think we said a few weeks ago.
Something.
You're flooded. Like, there's too much.
You're just gonna end up exploding.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been actually saying that out loud. You actually lately, where I'm just like, I'll get upset, and honestly, I'll be like, you know what? It doesn't even matter. Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, it just whatever. In my family, because they know how passionate I am about things, they tend to like, what? It doesn't matter. I'm sure you have an opinion about everything. I'm like, no, I don't even care. I think that's come with age. I'm trying to wean out what everybody's gonna take that much energy, and what just is not worth it.
It might be fun in a few weeks to talk about personalities and personality types. It's not something that is grounded in any sort of real science. But I will say we do have at least one free week coming up where we've got nothing on the agenda. And so it might be cool to bring that up, because I think a lot of what you're talking about, and also a lot of the way that we maintain those different relationships, comes down to, your personality type, and how you behave. Yeah. Or at least go ahead.
It's a comment. I think Christina is right. As you get older, you seem to put stuff into perspective as to what matters, as to what you think matters more. What, as you would say, you would choose your battles. You know what I mean? You would choose what you want to. Yeah, I think you're right. It was just a comment.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking like, all that a fox. Like, you reach that point. You just, I don't care anymore. All right, we're getting off track there. Let's keep going, because this is something that I think we haven't actually said, but is something that we just need to remember. The more involved the relationship, the more effort you have to put into it. And you've said that already with your comments. You care more about this relationship versus that less important relationship. which is frustrating because then those are the people, you know, when you get into a spat with them or a conflict with them, it's more frustrating because you care so much more about that person, that relationship. And then in a lot of ways, it's harder to, you know, rebuild it, to fix it. So just something to think about.
I feel like
Um,
there needs
ahead.
to be more men that has to take this class specifically for this chapter. Just had to.
all
put it out
bad.
there.
Yeah, they're not all bad, but they can.
I second that notion.
Let's talk a little quickly about voluntary versus involuntary relationships. We talked about this a little bit weeks ago, but it's important in this case, especially as we think about how you maintain them. You have a lot of relationships that you have no control over. Those are the involuntary ones. I love this picture. It cracks me up because this is like me and my sister back in the day, I swear. So involuntary relationships, these are things that you're forced into. You have to have relationships with these people. Siblings is the ultimate involuntary relationship. You know, after that, your coworkers, the people that you have to deal with on a regular basis, the people you sit next to. If you're sitting next to someone or if you're partnered with someone that you just, you don't like them or you don't want to deal with them, it's one of those really frustrating relationships that you, to some extent, you have to maintain to survive what you're doing. And then anyone else you're forced to be in a relationship with, in-laws, neighbors, roommates, stuff like that. You've got people that they're involuntary relationships. They're not all bad. But when they're bad, it can be very frustrating.
I'm actually forced to be in a relationship with my daughter-in-law. I don't like her, but because my son loves her, I have to bite, tongue, lip, you know, face fixing. Yeah, I do get that.
My dad is suddenly being more and more vocal about my sister's husband. Very interesting to watch, just to let his barriers come down and how he's getting more vocal about how he feels about him. Very interesting. Marcina, go ahead.
I'm not forced to any relationships anymore. Right, Courtney? You can't force me. I feel this, someone said this to me a while ago. No one can make you do anything. You have a choice. Everything, you have a choice. So for me, when you talk about siblings, I am the oldest of 7. I think I told you guys this already.
Yep.
So for me, believe it or not, I don't have a relationship with all my siblings, primarily because of healthy boundaries.
Sure.
You have to have healthy boundaries, and if it's messing up your health mentally and emotionally, you have to cut it off. Whether it's a friend, family, foe, employee, it doesn't matter. Like, and that's where I am. So don't chop my head off, Professor, but I don't have relationships with everybody. I'm probably more closer to you, and I just met you, Professor, than I am to one of my sisters, honestly. Like, so I'm not the involuntary, voluntary, or forced relationship now.
Realize when we say voluntary versus involuntary, that doesn't put any emphasis on how much you maintain the relationship. It's just the fact that that relationship is there.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
Really quick. With what I just said, okay? So, like I said, I don't like her. So this is what my son, because we had such a big argument one time and it blew out of proportion. And I told him, you know, you like her, you love her, that's fine and dandy. That doesn't mean that I have to have a relationship. You understand what I'm saying? So my son said to me, well, if you can't have a relationship with her, then you can't have a relationship with your grandchild. What does that have to do with anything? Like, I will respect her when I see her. I will add cordial, but why do I have to build a relationship with her?
But building a relationship and maintaining a relationship are two different things.
That's what I meant to say, not to cut you off. Why do I have to maintain a relationship with her? Like, I don't like her.
And that's where, if we go back to this one, It's you put up with these people because you care about someone else, if that makes sense. You want a relationship with your son, so to some extent you have to put up with those people. It's the same thing with my sister and my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law is a jerk. He's just a jerk, we're just gonna say that. And more and more of the family, they've been married now about 10 months. More and more of the family is like, you know, he did this or he said that, or he's rubbing people the wrong way. And, you know, we want her to be happy. So we tolerate him, and we'll be going on vacation with him later this summer, and we do things with him and buy Christmas presents for him. But the reality is,
Oh, you're
everyone's
going
like,
all out, Professor.
huh?
You're going all out.
Well, because this is my sister, I want her to be happy, right? And so going back to how you maintain those relationships, tasking in particular, I'm doing something that I don't necessarily want to do because that relationship is more important to me. My relationship with her, and I'm maintaining my relationship
Is that
with her.
not technically being forced to do that because you love your sister? Which you had on
No.
the other slide.
No, I still
No,
could.
because nobody's asking her to do all of that in spite of her
Exactly.
sister. She's willingly
Yeah.
doing it because of the love she has for.
Yes, yes. Oh no, I froze. No. Did you turn on Disney? Shoot.
That's the aunt is,
Nope.
is married to a
I'm
not.
back.
Okay.
I'm back now.
My aunt has this very same situation. He is not a stand-up husband whatsoever.
Mhm.
Whatsoever. And he'll barely come to like family parties and stuff. Like he'll be there for Christmas and stuff like that. And
or anything?
there's not one person that likes him. And
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not his biggest fan, but I tolerate him. Like I can have a conversation and blah, 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 but that still doesn't change my mind that he's a terrible husband. He's terrible.
Yeah.
But when he is around, everybody's nice and polite and whatever, but everybody knows.
And that's
not
that
the favorite.
relational, yep, and that's that relational maintenance. Again, you're not working
Right.
to maintain your relationship with him. You're being polite because social norms, because that's what's expected, but you're really working to maintain that relationship with someone else. So at least when
Right.
your son says, if you want to have a relationship with me, you need to have a relationship with her. First of all, that's a tough, let's lay it out. That's a tough thing to hear from anybody. That hurts. That cuts deep. That's hard. No one wants to hear that. Absolutely. And it's not fair, but from his point of view, in his eyes, his context, he's like, but I love her and I love you and I want both of you to be happy and in a relationship with me. And so he might be overreacting. He might be saying something that he doesn't quite mean. But again, what's more important to you? And I'm not asking you to answer this. This is purely rhetorical. What's more important to you? To have a relationship with your son or not? And unfortunately, and that's where relationships get so hard and messy and confusing, because I'm in the same situation. Do I want to have a relationship with my sister or not? Go ahead.
He said that, so how he tries to define it is by saying, how can you expect to have a relationship with your grandchild when you can't have a relationship with his mother? And you kind of go back and you kind of think about it, but it's like, I don't have to see her on a day-to-day basis. I don't live with her. I don't have to deal with her. So yeah, even though now I'm more, yeah, fine. It is what it is. I love my grandchild. I love you. And I'm going to do it, not because you put that, that
ultimatum,
because for me, it would have been like, all right, well, then fine. And I would have just kept it moving, but I love my grandchild.
Arlise, so just to kind of put some insight in that, the way I'm seeing it from outside. So your granddaughter is a makeup of your son and his mother. So if there is things about his mother that you don't like, there might come a time where they're going to be things about your granddaughter that you're not gonna like. So if you learn to accept even the things you don't like about her, that means that when your granddaughter comes along, it'll be easier for you not to like have that same negative feeling about your granddaughter when she reminds you of her mother that you don't like so much.
Grandson.
Oh,
But
grandson, I'm sorry, grandson.
But I do get what you mean, and which was his point. Like, you know, how can you try to build a relationship? How can you not build a relationship with him, but still trying to build a relationship? She birthed him. She gave birth to him. That is her child. So yeah, I do. And this is why
and I only say it because of experience. Because I'm in the same situation. I have a best friend who I've been best friend with for over 15 years. And her kid's father, I cannot stand. I hate how he treats her. I hate how he talks to her. I hate all of it. And I have swallowed I've swallowed this big pill for years. And now they have 2 children together. And they have a son who is my godson. He is the epitome of his father. And I look at him, this little 5-year-old, and I'm like, oh, I just really don't like you. Because you are so much like your dad. So I try to separate it. Like, okay, he's a child.
But you love him too.
I love him too. It's such a like a fight. Like, oh my God, you're so cute, but oh my God, don't do that. Like, so I get it from both points.
And let's remember this. I think what we're talking about, what we haven't actually said is, to some extent, it's being the bigger person. Right? It's being the adult in the relationship. It's being the more accepting, responsible person in the relationship. And that really sucks sometimes. It's not fun to do. There's so many things that you want to say, or so many things that you want to react or communicate. And it's contextual in the sense that there are some instances where you can't say what you want to say. And it's such a pain in the neck, and it's so frustrating. My grandmother is 91, and she is, God, she can be so evil, mean to my mom and my uncles in particular. And then it's really interesting, depending on who you are in the family, she'll show you a different face. So she'll be really sweet to me. She'll be really sweet to one of my sisters, and she's a pain in the ass to my other sister. And we all know this, and it's common knowledge, and we talk about it, but I know that there are certain things that I need to say and do and appease, and I really should call her tomorrow because she's 91. But there's certain things that I need to say, and I want to be like, Grandma, you're such a bitch. Like, I want to say that, but I know if I do that, it's going to impact the relationship that she has with other people in my family. And so again, I'm being the bigger person, and it's like, you're watching these things happen, and you're watching what these people are saying, and you're so frustrated by it. But yeah, it's what you have to do. It's what you have to do because you're maintaining other relationships. Does that all make sense? I feel like it's a tangent, but it's so relevant too. I don't know.
Oh yes, there are some times where I look for the adult in the room, and then I realize that's me, and I just want to cry.
Oh, I know.
I'm just like, why?
I almost said a really bad word there because I really am agreeing with you. No, I don't want to be the only adult here.
Like, where's the adult? Oh,
yeah, great.
Oh, that's me.
I think we all do that. Like, why do I have to be the adult in this situation? Like, can somebody else be the adult?
Sorry.
Yeah. I just got a text message from my sister. Her sister-in-law is moving and gave her no notice. And she's like, oh, I don't want to move her, but I love my fiance. So same thing. It just keeps coming and coming. All right. I'm looking at the time, and I want to move this along. So let's talk relational dialectics. We talked about this before. Balance. Relationships need balance. And so what we're going to look at here are 3 different dialectics. It's kind of a weird word, but essentially what we're looking at is balance in relationships. There are 3 different ways that people find balance. And this is going to be important because one of your homework assignments for the next week is directly related to the relational dialectics. All right. Okay. So the first one is a balance between autonomy and connection. When you're in a relationship with someone, again, whether it's romantic, whether it's personal, whether it's friendship, there needs to be that balance between autonomy and connection. Think of it this way. We all know.
Free Britney.
Yeah, right. Perfect timing, right? Yeah, frankly, I mean, what's she fighting about in court right now? The fact that she has no autonomy, it's completely slanted one way versus the other. I was thinking about those relationships where the two people are so connected at the hip that they don't, romantic relationships in particular do this, but they don't branch out from each other. Those people who have shared Facebook accounts, or those people who can't go out with anyone else or do anything with anyone else if the other partner is not involved. That's sort of like really almost codependent, totally fused together relationship. That's one end of it, that connection, right? Versus autonomy, the people who have so much independence and they spend so little time with each other. So that's one tension that you have to navigate and you have to balance in a relationship. How much is your own individual self? How much is yourself with that partner? Any comments on that? Can anyone relate to that? Besides Brittany?
I was just gonna make a comment when it comes to the Britney situation. I'm a little on the cusp with it because I feel that her father is trying to protect her in a way because of prior mental issues, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But then again, I feel like there comes a time where she is old enough, you have to let her be an adult.
How old is she now? Isn't she like 40 something?
I think
Googling it.
I don't know. She's got to be close because I'm 35 and she's older than I am.
Yeah,
but at the
like
same time, like that umbrella versus a Volkswagen was in 2007.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, I mean? Because now I feel like you're holding on to this because you know the type of money that she has.
Right.
And you're holding on to that because of the money, not because of her health issues. Yeah.
It's like, are you trying to do this because of her money, or are you trying to do this because you're her dad? Like,
yeah,
I think that's a super, I think he's trying to do it for the money, but he's trying to use it as, I'm her dad. I care.
I agree.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Sure you do, jerk.
Mm-hmm. And she's 39. That happened when she was 26.
Right.
Tell me in 13 years that
that woman hasn't grown
as a person.
Like, the girl doesn't even have her children most of the time. Excuse me. Like, they're with their father and stuff like that. Now, I could not imagine, but I also can't imagine what she's been through either. So it's got to be like super, super painful. Mm-hmm. And like, I'm honestly surprised it hasn't gone further because she could easily do the S word, which I will not say in front of my children, but not homicide, but the S word.
Yeah.
And
I feel like
I don't think anybody would blame her for that.
I feel like they're adding on to her stress. Like she has enough that she has to deal with. I feel like you said that will push her over the edge. Like when am I gonna be old enough to have control of my own life?
Yeah, like give her a year. Let her have her year. And if she's going back to whatever, give her a time period. And if she's going back to what you saw back then we'll discuss it then. But until then, like, y'all didn't work that hard for that money. Y'all didn't do anything. No, I'm not gonna say anything. I shouldn't say that, but like, who hasn't grown in the 13 years that's happened? You know what I mean? Like, that's insane.
And this is a perfect example of an imbalance between autonomy and connection. I mean, connection's kind of a weird word in this case because I highly doubt that there's a lot of relationship between her and her father anymore. But but the fact that there's no autonomy, absolutely weird dynamic, weird balance or imbalance in that case. Yeah, it's a great example, quite honestly. So that's one imbalance, or rather one thing that needs to be balanced in a relationship, you need to have autonomy, but you need to have that connection. In my relationship, I will say that I have a group of friends and we plan girls' nights. It's a little bit harder now with pandemic and 3-year-old, but we plan girls' nights at least every 6 months. And I say bye and I go and we do whatever the heck we want to do. It's usually movies, crafting, and way too much wine. But that's what we need. And we have things that we do by ourselves, without our boyfriends, without our husbands, because we need that independence. We need that autonomy. To that end, my husband has his friends and the things that he does by himself. And that's good. And those are things that we need to stay sane and to stay ourselves. Where you see those relationships where people become the relationship, again, I'm thinking about 90 Day Fiance. Some of them do that. They throw themselves into it completely, but that's not a healthy balance and something that you want to avoid. All right, the next tension is between openness and closeness. And that's pretty simply, how much do you want to share with this person? How much do you want to share with the partner? Again, I think we gravitate towards romantic relationships, but it's not necessarily romantic relationships. Do you want to share yourself with the person that you are in a relationship with? Do you want to tell them about yourself and your thoughts and your dreams and your goals and the things that are important to you or not? I would argue that for most of us, the relationships that we are strongest in, our closest, our most valued relationships, there's going to be a degree of openness. You're not going to hide everything from people. You're not going to, not disclose things. Granted, there's things that you're not going to tell anyone. I'm not going to tell anyone. These are just things that we have and we hold on to and we're not comfortable with it. And there is that balance there. But when you have a relationship where people do not disclose anything, or when you have that relationship when people share way too much, again, that causes that imbalance. Can you think of any examples of that? This is a tough one. I think this is the hardest one sometimes. I mentioned earlier. Amber, you want to go ahead? I'm just looking for examples of relationships that have an imbalance between closeness and openness. Amber, do you have one?
I just wanted to comment on this. Me and my sister go back and forth with this topic. So for a week we'll be open with each other and we'll share everything, and then we'll go another week without telling each other anything. So we're not really balanced in that aspect, but
how close are you in age?
She's my stepsister, so we're a couple months apart, but we're
so similar age.
Yeah.
But again, that is going to be an involuntary relationship.
Yeah.
To some extent, you're forced to have a relationship with each other. It's how you choose to maintain it, but it's not necessarily one that you sought out and you chose to have in the first place.
Right.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Marzina, go ahead. Nope. Changed your mind.
I was gonna say another example that kind of piggybacks Amber a little bit is a coworker relationship. Like when you have a team of people you have to kind of work with or whatever. And it's kind of that hot cold 1 second. You guys are cool with working with each other.
Yeah.
But then when someone's trying to be bossier than the other, things kind of change.
And that's frustrating too, especially if there's any sort of other tension within the team. I've been in situations where I've worked with a group of people and something major happened and people were upset and they were angry and they were frustrated, and someone started opening up and saying more than they should have, or more than what was socially acceptable for this team. And so other people responded by closing themselves off to that person. You think about that office drama, kind of follows that idea very much. when we first started tonight, forgive me if I'm repeating myself, I mentioned before that I have a friend who recently broke up after a very long period of time. And the fact that she was very open with the relationship, and her friends and her family and her acquaintances and her coworkers knew that she was in a relationship with that person. But then she found out, I shouldn't say that she found out, she knew that the partner was not open about the fact that she was in a relationship. Just that imbalance, that social network where there's a social network on one side, but not on the other side. Huge imbalance there. Frankly, when I heard that her girlfriend hadn't confided to any of her friends that they were in a relationship, I was like, bye. You don't need this person. If they're not going to own up to the fact that they're in a relationship with you, there's so much just closed off there in general. So total imbalance.
Well,
Courtney, go ahead.
if I may ask, it sounds like it was two women. Was the other one out, so to speak? Like, did everybody know she was gay or she is gay?
Her family knew.
Uh-huh.
But she didn't tell her friends.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Her family knew, but she didn't tell any of her friends.
So let me
That's
get
the
this.
other way around.
But family, some people feel like family has no choice. Friends have a choice of loving you and not based on your choice. So it's almost like that feeling like.
Well, if I can make it even worse, when they broke up, she told her friends, by the way, I'm gay. I've been in a relationship with this person for 8 years. And they're like, oh, you poor baby. Why didn't you tell us? And so she turned it around into playing the victim. There's a lot to unpack there.
I'm confused, Professor. I'm really confused. Okay,
No,
so
go
you're
for it,
saying
yeah.
that
Nay.
your friend was in a relationship and she was in this relationship for 8 years. The relationship broke off. They broke up. And what happened? And
They broke up because the girlfriend, not the one that's friends with the professor, the girlfriend didn't tell her friends or her family about that, her friend who was the girlfriend, and they were together for 8 years and nobody on her side knew that they were together.
But pause. So why did they broke up because of that?
Other reasons too, not just that.
Oh, okay.
That
means, I know what the reasons are. You don't gotta tell me that.
I'd end it with her too then if that was the case.
But why would you end it? Who said that, Amber?
Yeah.
Amber, why would you end it though? If she didn't tell her friends, but she took the family knew, but the friends didn't know. Why would you?
I am not trying to be with somebody who is ashamed of me. Okay.
I was about to say that.
Knows. The family knows. To me,
Yeah, but why?
No, the
But
family.
why not the
family knew
friends?
she
I don't
was
understand that.
gay.
Live together.
Wait, the family what?
Well, they live together.
Good night.
I feel that
understand.
she was embarrassed. She wasn't fully comfortable within herself about being gay. That's all that
Very
it was.
possibly. Very possibly.
Well,
I
it
just
could-
don't
it
understand how you're in a
also-
relationship for 8 years and your friends
Need to
never
get out
know
of my
the
personal space,
relationship.
please.
But
Like, what
there's
is
the
going
open
on?
and the closed.
Something not right.
Like,
It
Did her
has the
family
open and the
know about the
closed.
relationship, or they just knew that she was
Professor, did
gay?
she ever meet their friend, like,
Yeah.
she
Oh,
did.
yeah.
So just
This
think
is
about
my
that. So that means
friend.
that, yeah, exactly. That means that she has to play a role that is not true in front of these friends. That is just so demeaning.
So wait, the friends didn't know she was gay?
Correct.
No.
I'm all the way asleep.
Correct, Christina.
I'm-
that is so demeaning.
I'm all the way asleep. Like, that's horrible. So wait. No,
Did
that's
the family? Okay, so my question is: did the obviously the family knew she was gay, but did
Everyone supported it. Oh, no. Shoot, chat.
freeze.
There we go.
I
I'm
know,
back.
this is the worst
Professor,
time
come
ever.
back.
The family
Hello.
knew.
Back.
That's what she said. The family knew. The girlfriend's family didn't know.
And
But
supported it.
yeah, the
Wait,
family
no.
knew.
The family knew that she had a girlfriend and knew the girlfriend and supported it. The only people that
okay.
were oblivious were the friends.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't, okay.
That's
Honestly,
fishy.
you know what? My negative thoughts already go to like, you know what? Who in that friend group did she not want to know that that was her girlfriend? Who are you sleeping with in that
I was
friend
just gonna say,
group?
I was
that
just
you
gonna
didn't want
say
to be
that
friends with
too.
them?
We're not
But
sure.
this is the thing. This is
We're
the
not sure.
thing. This is the thing. It might not. I feel like if the friends didn't know she was gay, which means she was pretending to be straight, or having to be like keep it kind of sugar coated or underlying, which means she could have been sneak linking and you know what the dick on the side, the pee pee. So I'm just saying she could have been doing stuff on the side. That's all I'm saying.
Like Christina said, who in that and the thing of the friends that she didn't want to know
And-
that they were
And who and how stupid are these friends? She's been around for
Thank
8
you,
years.
Christina.
How
Thank
stupid
you.
are these friends? Or how much
Somebody
are they
had-
actually your friends?
Somebody
They didn't
had
figure out
to
that that was your
blow a
girlfriend. No one's
vibe.
bringing her around.
Somebody
We're in
had to put
2021.
the vibe.
If you spend any long amount of time with any woman, people assume you're sleeping with her. Like,
Thank you.
these
Thank
friends.
you. Christina over there about to flip a script. I'm trying to tell y'all. Somebody.
Listen,
She
8
was.
years. I'm
she
mad
had
for
a
her.
sneaky
I'm mad
link.
for her. You know what, Professor?
She had a
Give me your
sneaky
friend's
link.
number. We're gonna curse out this ex-girlfriend real quick. Like,
Yeah,
nah.
Professor,
Nah.
let your friend
Believe me,
let your friend know we support her. Like
I
we're
will.
out for her. Like,
Yes.
no, that's
I will.
crazy.
Does she want me to come get the friend? I come and get her. Let me know. Call me.
It's funny. I know, again, it feels like we're getting off a tangent with this, but everything you're saying goes back to everything we're talking about tonight, right? The networks, the self-disclosure, the understanding, a relationship talk, just being able to have that conversation, say, hey, it bugs me that your friends don't know about me after 8 years, like that kind of stuff. And when we talk about why they broke up, like I said, lots of reasons, but these major things were not happening, so they couldn't maintain that relationship. So please realize, I'm giving you a case study here, right? And it's a ridiculous case study, and I'm so conflicted because it's real. I'm not making this stuff up.
Has she ever made it a point to ask her, why is it that your friend don't know about me? Like what like
Yes.
has she?
Yes.
And
I have a question.
What was her-
What was the response, Professor?
Well,
Yes.
that's a great question. And let's go back to openness versus closeness. She wouldn't tell her.
She wouldn't?
Yeah.
She's sneaky link. I told you she got a sneaky link sausage. I'm trying to tell you. I'm telling you. One of the guys is a friend. I promise. It's a guy friends. Is a guy friends? Tell me.
I don't
Professor.
know. I don't know.
I know. You don't even got to tell me. I know already. I know. You just woke me
Again-
all the way up. I know.
Again, it's that total imbalance. This is an extreme example. This is a super extreme example, but it's a complete imbalance between that openness and that closeness. If you can't have that conversation, if you can't have that relationship talk, how the hell is it going to work? How do you hold on to this relationship? So, yeah. I know believe me, it's frustrating. All right, last one, relational dialectic having to do with,
Quick comment, Professor Swinger. I would have left after the first year. Nope.
but people do
Out the door,
dumb
dinosaur.
things. People do dumb things for weird reasons, right?
Love. The sex is good. You know, and sex is when it's good, it make you forget a lot of things, rationalize a lot of things properly.
You know, I just
Or
wanna make
even
a
just
comment.
individual, anxieties and stressors and self-worth, all sorts of things are going to impact it. Go ahead,
You know,
Christina.
So I would say I was in a similar situation. I was
Mhm.
the girlfriend. Now, there was a point in time where I also played the friend card, right? But the reason for it was it had nothing to do with her. It was more about my comfort. It was more about me having to get used to it. This was the first time that I was actually saying it out loud. So she said it, I was ready. So I played I mean, I don't know if it's bold or not, but I'd be like, listen, I know we're together, but when we go into this situation, can we just not announce the fact that we're a couple? Like, we just not, if it comes up, fine, it is what it is, but we just not announce it. But 8 years, like she gave me like a cutoff, figure it out. So I mean, I get it, but when you say 8 years, it just blows my mind. I don't know why. Clearly your friend has her own, and not to offend, but her own self-worth issues.
Absolutely.
Because who would allow someone to make them feel like they're not good enough for 8 years?
And I think it's just another example of how closely communications can be tied to psychology. You know, why do we say the things that we say? Why do we do the things that we do? Why do we communicate certain behaviors? Because there's something within ourselves that's influencing it, essentially. All right, last one. Last dialectic tension is between predictability and novelty. And that's essentially, you know, how willing are you to put up with the same old versus how willing are you to switch gears immediately? You know, it's just, you get in these relationships and you're in them for a long time and you find a flow and you find a pattern and you find what's normal and what you've always done. And for some people that's comforting and it works and it's something that they want. But then you've also got people who really thrive on being novel and outgoing and doing exciting things. And so that's another tension when you're talking about relationships. You know, how much normal, boring, regular old, same old do you want versus let's do something new and exciting. I don't know. Can anyone comment on that? I feel like
is this only regarding like an activity? Like, so like I like consistency, but does that mean I'm pretty like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand it, I guess, 100%. So when you describe that, you almost describe that as an activity, like doing new things.
I don't
like
know.
That, but,
I don't know, because I have to be honest, I understand it best as an activity. But it doesn't have to be. It could also be, well, it could also be an emotional connection with someone. For example, where you've got someone who's always behaves the same way and always says the same thing and does the same thing versus someone who has like a complete change of heart and says something completely out of character, or does something completely out of character. So in that case, it doesn't have to be a specific activity. I'm trying to explain it.
If anyone sees what I just typed, I can't really talk about it, but which is the same thing. I'm kind of, and I'm getting that pushback, like, but why? But why? Like, what is the problem? Like, but why? And I'm just like,
That's a beautiful example. I don't want to, I know I'm loud, so I don't want to say it and blow your cover, or at least. So if you can see the chat, please take a peek. But yeah, absolutely. That is a balance of what it's always been versus here's something new. Here's a new person to introduce. Here's a new situation to introduce. Why are you changing it up? And I think that's really hard for some people, you know? Other thoughts?
wow, this class tonight is really deep, y'all.
Oh no. Sorry.
Wait, so like, okay, I'm gonna be transparent. I was actually gonna call you, Courtney, and ask for some relationship advice about this topic, but you're here, so I'm gonna need your feedback. Cause you know, y'all's married folks. I'm a divorcee back on the dating market. Now look, so when we talk about the whole predictability and the novelty thing, right? For me, predictability for me is the patterns and the habits. Like, so for me, maybe cultural, growing up, my father taught my brothers, even though they were like really young, to open up the door for us. No, the girls, you know, pull out our chair. I've never had to touch a door until I was like an adult, like close when I was with my family. Like if I was in a relationship, like that's what I looked for, chivalry, right? So it was like being able to predict that the guy was going to act a certain way and have certain habits or characteristics or whatever traits, right? And then the behavior, like the respect the respect factor of everything. Look at Professor trying to sneak away, like I don't see her just get up and tiptoe off. But anyway, but for that, like the situation I'm in now, this guy is not is predictable in the aspect of I don't want to say he's a narcissist, so don't put that in your head, even though I said it. He is very aggressive and not predictable, not like physically aggressive, like he doesn't hurt me or my children or anything. He's the first guy my children ever met. Like, you know, so this is like a serious thing, right? So like, but he's very aggressive in his tone. He doesn't apologize. I'm not used to one not taking accountability. So if he does something that hurts me, it's more like it's my fault, even though it is his fault. Like if I say the sky is blue, he says it's purple. And even though I clearly see the sky is blue, he will say why it's purple and have all this logic and scientific background and philosophical and this and that. Like honestly, and that's just how he is. And it's just like, I don't like that because I'm used to I'm able to predict certain habits or accustomed to certain habits and traits, right? And then again, the behaviors, it's just I don't understand it. So for me, I guess that's like the imbalance of it all. Am I making sense?
Yes, that's exactly what Christina was talking about.
Okay. So
Absolutely.
that's where I'm at with him, because it's like, you know, great guy, all this other stuff, but just that part of I'm not used to or accustomed to certain things. And he's American, don't ask. And but he's extremely articulate, extremely intelligent. I'm a sapiosexual. So for me, it's like the intellectual side of him is just great. But that part of him, it's really different for me. It's the imbalance of it all that bothers me. So,
and that's what you, in this relationship, as you decide whether you maintain it or not, you need to decide what that balance is and what are you willing to put up with.
And have to be willing to talk about it and to let him know what you feel uncomfortable with and what you feel comfortable with.
But this is the thing, the conversation, everything we talked about, you already changed the slide, Professor. That everything we discussed in the beginning about the whole list of what will make a relationship, we had these conversations. It was already done. And it turned into me being, as he says, I'm a Black woman physically in physical form, but a white woman mentally. That's what he says.
Ooh. So, I wouldn't like that. I mean, I would think that's a pretty obnoxious thing to say.
What did he say to you?
He was saying I was soft. He was saying I was soft and I live in the land of unicorns. And that's what he said, unicorns and rainbows.
Like, my 3-year-old does. But
so Marzina, you need to bring back to him to make him remember those conversations that you first had. Those stuff that meant so much to you, you know, like when you first met the conversation, you need to reiterate what you first talked about.
I've done this, guys, already, and I'm
not. So then why are we still talking about him if he's not respecting you? Goodbye.
I was about to say the same thing.
No, Court was going to say
peace out, Boy Scout.
That's my example of predictability and novelty. Like,
that's a beautiful example. Thank you.
I think productivity. Professor, you have to put the right.
Which one?
Slide back up so I can say the word. I have to see
it.
Predictability.
Predictability. Yep.
Pronounce it. There you go. Predictability. I think predictability. I think is so regular pattern of habits that partners desire. So, I think our predictability is based. I think where that becomes an issue is not based just on the relationship. It's also based on how you were raised, right? So certain behaviors that you expect because of what you've seen versus just this relationship. So I think that's when I ask for consistency. So I'm always saying that consistency. I need you to be consistent. If you're gonna be consistently an asshole, I need you to be a consistent asshole. Like I just don't need for you to one day like, oh, you know, I want to know what I'm looking like, what I'm dealing with, period. So I'm
Yeah.
always asking for consistency, whether it be get bad consistency or good consistency. I just want to know what I'm dealing with. Do I want you to
That's
fix
fair.
the negative? Of course, but I want to know what I'm dealing with to be able to deal with novelty, right?
So I want you to think about something as we're talking about this, and Marzina, forgive me, your example is like a perfect segue into it. When you talk about these relationships and these balances, a lot of times when you think about what people discuss in, say, couples therapy, or in any sort of relational therapy, parent-child, friends who are in, mediating with each other, this is what they're talking about. I want to spend more time with you. I want to feel more connected with you. You're smothering me, give me space, right? And they need to find that balance in that relationship. Or you don't tell me what you think, you're so closed off from me, and vice versa. Or you're being a jerk versus this is what I've come to expect in a relationship, and what I think is, a good baseline. So in a lot of these instances, that's what people are discussing and they're working on when they're in a therapy situation. Rosina, you're going to do what you want. You're a confident lady and you know what you want. But if you want to pursue a relationship with this person, this might be someone who needs some help, some.
You're
And all these,
And I'm crossing a line there, but go
You're
ahead.
absolutely
The
no,
balance-
you're not crossing a line. You're absolutely right, because I've been another transparency moment. He courted me for 4 or 5 months before we had any, adult crossing of lines.
Traction.
And it was amazing. The courting was amazing, and the other things were great. But the thing is that I've noticed that just that part, when the unveiling started to happen, and the unveiling happens within that year, right? So they say 6 months, I say 7, honestly. 7 to 8 months is when the unveiling kind of starts, and that's what happened. So that part, you're absolutely right, Professor. And that's where I'm on the fence, because marriage has been a huge topic in his family, like with him and I, and it's only been a little over a year. So like,
That's quick.
yeah. So it's like a big topic, type of thing. And it's just like, anyway, that's besides the point. I just
And-
know that you're right, Professor. I just don't
No.
know if and it's like, I don't want to do it situation. I don't want to be in a situational relationship, because my children adore him. Like, again, first guy they met outside of their father, my ex-husband. So this is really different, like, for them. And my son is already extremely attached. And well, both my sons actually are extremely attached to him.
Sure.
And my daughter, she let me know, like, Mom, I really like him. And my daughter is very hard to please. So it's like, a part of me is like, if I go into this relationship, it's going to be because of my children, not because of me. And someone I look up to, she said to me, and she's married as well, she said, don't do that. Even though she said, I can tell, she said, you love your children, but this is not what you want to do. That's not a decision you wanna make. So you're right, Professor. He needs to get help.
Marzina, you said it before I said it. I was gonna tell you, granted, your children likes him, but it's not about them. It's about you. At the end of the day.
Absolutely. And I'm saying that, please know, I'm saying that because now I'm worried that I crossed some horrible boundary by saying this guy needs to get help. I am advocating everyone. I think everyone can benefit from therapy at some point in their lives. I think it's not always easy. It's not always pretty. It's certainly not something that people naturally gravitate towards. But I really advocate that everyone can benefit from it at some point.
I literally preach therapy to everyone. Like, no matter how big, how small, a person brings a situation to me. I'm like, sometimes it takes a little time to kind of get to know yourself from a different perspective. So maybe a little therapy would help. Like, I mean, I've learned how to stigma with it. So I've learned how to segue into kind of like need help. But I think it is. I think you're right, Professor. I think it's very useful for anyone.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. Everyone experiences trauma. Everybody experiences a time where you feel lost. You're trying to figure yourself out. Everybody experiences that. So I think.
Hello, puberty.
6 months.
Marzina, it might be that you two may have to sit in therapy, because maybe sitting in
But
therapy,
it's-
you
and
will get to see.
Arlick, it's funny you're saying that because I brought it. All right, so Professor, what you said, I'm gonna start with you first before I forget. You said she's like, no. No, but first, let me just say, Professor, you didn't cross any boundaries at all. You're absolutely amazing, because even though you're professor, but your mom and sister all in one. So that you did the right thing. So that was amazing. I admire you because of that. It was honesty, and I appreciate honesty. Also, Christina and Professor Snyder, you guys talked about advocating for therapy. I brought that up to him, that maybe he should. I had to with him. I have to really walk on eggshells and watch my wording. So I had to say to him, you have to, you ever thought about going to therapy, like that. And then I had to quickly switch it, Arlick, to maybe we should go as a couple to relationship therapy, so he doesn't feel attacked. And he would, and he voiced his opinion, and he said he would do relationship, but he never talked about, the going by himself. But he did disclose that he did do therapy, on his own way before me. So that part.
Rosina, I always, I working in the field for so long, and couples was like the main thing that I dealt with. I always would.
Oh shoot, she's
Christina, no, you're freezing.
Everybody's, it's not an absolute. You see me?
Christina.
No, you froze for a second. Would you start again? Now we see you.
We see you now. Yeah.
I would always recommend, because from working in the field, I've always known reluctance comes mostly from the male. They think.
I think. Great. Now I'm frozen.
So what I would recommend is that personally you go to therapy first, because you're gonna also want to learn how to make it easier to have the conversation with him. And your therapist should show you what is it about, having conversation. I don't know how to say, but having conversation with your therapist, you're going to learn things about yourself to make it easier for you to understand where he's coming from, as well as how to address him or come at him to bring the topic back up. So it's almost like, how are you going to tell me to go to therapy and you're not? Because I'm sure that he also thinks, well, if I need to go to therapy, you need to go to therapy. It's always like the male response. So I would just recommend you go first if it's something you really wanted.
Okay. I can dig it.
Is it RuPaul who says, how are you going to love yourself before you love somebody else? I'm stuck on that right now. And I'm frozen. God, mother, father.
Yep, you
There, I'm
gotta
back.
love yourself before you can love anybody else.
Is that
think
RuPaul?
so.
I don't know where it's coming from. It's in my head. One thing that I've learned over the years that I don't like, but is pretty accurate, is people are going to do what people are going to do. They're going to do what they're going to do. You can't fix them. You can't force them. You can't make them do something that they don't want to do. You have to pick your battles. And Marzina, again, I don't want to put you in a spot and make you feel uncomfortable with this. Thank you for sharing it. But the reality is, this is one of those tensions that you need to think about and decide, do you want to maintain it or not? And so we decide, when we have these stresses, when we have these tensions, we decide how we're going to deal with it. And sometimes it's, letting one side win over the other. Sometimes it's separating ourselves from the situation and walking away from it. That the choice to do nothing is still a choice, if you think about it. Sometimes it's compromising, and sometimes it's just trying to repackage that tension in another way and to distract the other person from it. And so it's kind of a weird segue here, but again, I'm looking at time and trying to be respectful of time here. When it comes down to these tensions, these are the 4 different ways that we might deal with it. And so as you're thinking about this tension with this man, you're kind of choosing between these 4 different pieces here. Does that make sense? Are the words
Very
working?
much so. Nope.
Okay.
I'm listening.
Okay. But I'm not sure that I'm communicating because my brain just kind of shut down.
No, you are. You are. You're on point.
Okay, cool. All right.
You're
Here's
talking
what I
about
wanted.
therapy. This class for me is therapy every week.
Oh,
Thank you. Exactly. I agree. I totally agree.
safe space, guys. Safe space. All right. Here's what I want to do. It's 8. We've been talking a lot. I always say that we're going to end sooner, and then you guys are so good. You're so good, and I appreciate it. Here's what I want to do. I'm going to stop the slides, and I'm not even bother with the activity that we were going to do because we did it. We're good. Here's what I want to do. Let's look at what you're responsible for homework, because it has to do with these dialectics that we were just talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this week in Blackboard. There it is. So week 9, chapter 7. And let me give you my screen again. I apologize. I feel like we're switching gears really fast here. But again, it's because it's 8. It's 8. We're done. We're tired. So here's the deal. This week in class, you've got the reading in the chapter. You've got, these are some old PowerPoints. Of course, once this video loads, I'll post it for you because I have been. Long distance partner Skype is the video activity. There's a quiz. And then there's this guy, relational dialectics essay assignment. And what I'm asking you to do is to choose a relationship and analyze it using those relational dialectics, okay? I want you to look at how does that relation show connection and autonomy? How does that relationship show openness and closeness? How does it show predictability and novelty, and how are they balanced? Are they perfectly in balance? Are they really skewed or not? So you're going to pick a relationship. It can be any relationship you want. It can be Bella and Edward if you want. It can be your personal relationships. It's random. I totally hate Twilight, but pick any relationship and analyze those tensions. And it says here that you are going to recommend then how that those people can maintain or improve the relationship. All right. So you're breaking it down, you're analyzing the relationship, and then you're giving that relationship advice. Doesn't have to be romantic. I know most of what we've talked about tonight is romantic. It doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. And then it says you can present this info as either an essay or a PowerPoint presentation. And I just want to really quickly show you the PowerPoints. And I'm going to close these because we ended up not using any of those. Whoops. Hold on. This drop down just got in my way. Come on. There we go. Boop. There is a template in Blackboard that you can download, and it's a PowerPoint template that you can just fill right in with that information. So here are the instructions again on the template. I suggest that you use that because it's the easiest way. After that title slide, tell me about the relationship you've chosen. And then right here, you've got a series of slides that look like this. It's got the smart art in it, and you can fill right in, and it's loading, and it's loading. There we go. Autonomy and connection, okay? You can say, how are people autonomous in this relationship? How are they connected? And then if you want to, you can even go so far as, let me move things out of my way, as to change your balance beam here, all right? And show how one is more balanced than the other, or more slanted than the other. So that's what you're focusing on for that assignment. Again, it says right here in Blackboard, here's a template. Oh no, shoot, you didn't see anything I just showed you. Dagnabbit. There we go. Did you see this, the PowerPoint stuff? Oh, good, okay. So this is the PowerPoint, what it looks like, but it is right there in Blackboard here. Here's a template, so you can download it and you can just do your assignment right in that template and then submit that. Okay, does that make sense? Awesome. All right, I have one more favor to ask of you. I'm switching gears again. So any final thoughts on relational maintenance before I switch gears on you? No, good, okay. It's early, but I want to talk about the final. All right, I want to talk about the final. Here's why. I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning of class. The final project as it exists right now is a mess. It's really a mess. The reason behind that is when you open it up, the final project is 9 pages long. And there are 7 different, what's the word? There are 7 different assignments to choose from. So this is it here. You can download final project and the rubric. And then you can see here, you're going to select project 1 through 7. I really think this needs some work. And because you guys are so thoughtful, I'm really enlisting your help to help me fix this and make it better. All right. So what I'm asking you to do, the final project folder is open in Blackboard now. Sometime in the next week before our next class, read through it. Okay. It's 9 pages. The first page is a basic introduction. And then after that, pages 2 through 8 are the different projects. Project number 1 has you doing some nonverbal communication experiments. Project number 2 is reflecting on how good of an interpersonal communicator you are. Project number 3 is asking people to give you feedback on yourself. My complete nightmare, but it needs some work. And so what I'm asking you as a class to do is look at the project, review it, jot down some notes, what you think, because I would like to revise it. 9 pages is way too overwhelming. And I think, frankly, in our discussions and some of the things we've talked about, that there's a lot more that we can do with it. All right, there's a lot more opportunity. There's a lot more that we can do that'll make it meaningful for you. All right. Sound good? All right, my friends, that's it. So I